Hey everybody, all right, so today we're going to learn about how to add a lead manually onto Commissions Inc. And then once you add that lead, how do you create a search criteria so every time a property hits the market that fits in that criteria, that client will get that property via email. So ultimately, every single one of your potential buyers and potential sellers should be getting emails about what's going on in the neighborhood. So you want to set up a criteria for every single client. So the moment something hits, they're getting notified, and it's a way that you have a reason to reach out to them, to talk to them about properties. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started. All right, so I've already created 2 leads right here. But I'm going to go ahead. Here's the campaign. So when you log in, this is what your dashboard looks like. And all right, it's loading right now. Okay, so when you log in, this is what your dashboard looks like. It's going to show you any to-dos that you've told yourself to do, any calls, anything like that. We're going to come over here to leads. Now the goal is when you do marketing, that you do some sort of lead capture system. So ultimately, if they're on Facebook and they see one of your ads and it says, hey, learn about more properties here, and they click, and it takes them to a sign-up page, or it takes them to your Commission Inc. website, and therefore when they're searching for properties, it's going to pop up and say you need to register. Once they register, that lead will automatically get added into your database. That's the efficient way of doing this. But maybe you're out in the world and you're talking to somebody, and they say, oh my God, I'm thinking about selling some property, and you quickly write their name and number down, and you need to come back and add them manually into your system. So the information you definitely need to get, of course, are their first name, their email address, their contact information. And you can even ask them, hey, do you have, if I send you my newsletter or something, can you send out, what's your mailing address? Those 4 forms of communication, you should be pretty solid. So you're going to come here, click on leads, and you're going to click add new lead. It's going to ask you that you have to maintain all the records. So we're just going to put okay. Again, this is all the client's information, even though I'm adding company information. Just doing it as an example, so make sure you put the client's information here. Source is very important. Now, source does not mean my friend's best friend or hair cutting. A source, you've got to categorize your sources. So if it's a friend of a best friend, it might be a referral from a sphere of influence. Or this is your source, is your sphere of influence, friends. Referral would be considered a source. You don't need the detail of what do you mean by source. You don't want to say, this is a referral from my best friend, because ultimately you're just going to source this as a general category. And then in the notes, you're going to put, my best friend, blah, 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 gave me a referral. So source would be referral, coworker, sphere of influence. So sphere of influence is people that you already know. Facebook ad, postcards. These are all categories of sources. So I've seen some agents in there like got really, really detailed with their source. The idea is, if you're getting a lot of business from one source, when you go to search that source, it's going to show all these type of people that show up under that source. So if it's I'm marketing to a certain neighborhood, that neighborhood is ultimately your source. Well, what was your marketing campaign? Well, I sent out postcards, or I door knocked. The door knocking would be the source. So I'm going to call this one sphere of influence. It says what agent. I want to assign it to myself. Are there any other things? If you have labels you want to add to it, or right here, this is where I would say best friend, that cuts my hair. There you go. So now you've categorized. You do want to send the welcome email out, and I'll show you what the welcome email looks like. So ultimately, what type of person were they, buyer or seller? Put it in, boom, 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 hit save. So this is extremely important. Pretty much every single line here should be filled out. Partner means, are you partnering this lead with anybody? Listing agent, so if you're the listing agent, ultimately you're going to be the agent. If this is a listing, then that person would be the seller as well. And then if you have any labels. Now labels can start to be, detailed as well. So label, I can label this as sphere of influence also. And okay, so I didn't want to take it. So we'll go buyer. It's a buyer label. And hit save. All right, so now it popped me up in the lead itself. It's going to show that it's a new lead. If this is a manual lead, something you automatically, then ultimately, even though it's a new lead, you instantly want to change this to I've contacted them. Because if you're manually entering it, you've obviously made contact with them. This is where you can create labels. So under here, at the very top, these are recruiting labels. You should never have to use these. 99% of the time, you're down here. If this person is an agent and you're trying to recruit them into the company, you would assign these labels because ultimately these have recruiting email drip campaigns that go out. Under here are for buyers and sellers. So instead of it saying uncategorized, we're going to categorize this as buyers and sellers. And these are the labels you can add. If you want to create your own label, that's another training class, but ultimately you can create your own label. And every time you add that label, you can customize the emails that you want to go out on a monthly or weekly basis. So ultimately you create your own campaign and then add it to a label so it shows up here. But I'm going to say this was this person's relocating in the next 12 months, and she's a first-time home buyer, or the person's a first-time home buyer, and apply. So now all these little labels are showing up under the person. Here's all my information. Here's the notes that have happened so far, and you can see this is where the welcome email. So you can see because I checked send the welcome email, I can come here to notes and communication, ultimately right here, and I can see what does my welcome email say. So they received, hi, so-and-so, here's your login information. This is the website you go to, and here's the login information, and yada, yada, yada. Thank you very much, Hubbell Real Estate Group. Now, ultimately, when that lead goes to this website and enters the information in, they're going to be logging into the back end of your portal, because this lead is assigned to you. Now, because you manually entered the lead, they've never created themselves. So here's the lead right here. And you can see right here, they've never created themselves a search. So they have no properties getting sent to them right now. They've never looked at anything. They've never saved anything. Ultimately, you've manually put them in, you've labeled them, but now you want to start sending them emails with properties. So maybe this person is relocating in the next 12 months and they're thinking that they want to be between $300,000 and $400,000, or they want to keep their mortgage around $2,000 a month, and they might have $25,000 that they're going to put down. All right, run that scenario by a lender. Lender's going to kick you back a guideline that says you should be looking for property between maybe 350, somewhere in that 350 to 380 would be a safe bet based on the information that you gave me. So you're going to come over here to no name, you're going to click on them, and right up here under save search, it's going to pull up, and we're going to create a search for them. Now I want everything in Grover Beach. So there's Grover Beach. I want everything in Arroyo Grande. I want everything in Pismo. I want everything in Oceano. Okay, so you can see right up at the top, I'm starting to create my search. So everything that's active in Grover, AG, Napomo, Oceano, well, we can see there's 418 properties. So now we need to narrow down our search. In the beginning, when you're working with a client, don't get so narrow that you potentially can miss an opportunity because you said you wanted a 4-bedroom because they would not settle for a 3, but ultimately they may settle for a 3-bedroom with an office. So don't send them, if they're saying the max, I want a minimum of 4 bedrooms, give them a 3-bedroom and see what happens, because you just don't want to narrow it so much that you miss an opportunity, because the agent on the other end may input this in the MLS as a 3-bedroom with an office, but because you said minimum 4, it won't even show up in your criteria. So at first, when you're first starting to work with someone, you want to send them a broad search. And over time, as you know for a fact that these have definitely been weeded out, you start narrowing down your search then. If you start narrow, ultimately you haven't worked with the client long enough to really know what they're looking for. They may tell you what they're looking for, but once you actually get out and start looking at properties, buyers start changing their mind. And so it's important that you actually take them out in the field, show them properties, and then go back and start narrowing down your search. So ultimately, what I start with is just a broad range of price, because price is something they are very adamant about. They have a very clear picture of what they can afford, and it's typically they give you a range. I can afford somewhere between $2,000 and $2,200 a month. That means you make a broad search. That way, I've just cut some of these down to 379 properties. Well, now I definitely want a minimum of 3 bedrooms. Oh, sorry. Once I put that in there and hit and clicked, it actually brought it down to 36 properties. 36 properties is completely doable for someone to look at and not feel overwhelmed and feel like you've sent them a good amount of information. So right there, I'd stop. I'd say, cool. Any property in these areas between 300,000 and 400,000, I want to send it, because this buyer isn't ready for 12 months. They really don't know what they want yet until we actually get out in the field. And the idea is get them interacting with you. The more they interact, the more they go, oh, this is a 2-bedroom, way too small. Definitely don't want a 2-bedroom. Well, the more they do that, then you can come back and you can say, all right, I definitely only want to look at 3 bedrooms at this point. Well, now there's only 7 properties you sent them. So again, once you create your general search, you're going to come over here to create. Now, some buyers will say, I'm definitely only looking for lots that are multifamily lots. Well, if you scroll down, all of these categories are here. And this is where you can get detailed if you really want to get detailed. But I'll tell you time and time again, I see agents get too detailed and they miss opportunities because they put one thing in that ultimately the buyer could have went, well, it's not that big of a deal, but you never sent it to them, so you never even had the opportunity to have that conversation with the client. This is not going to dial in and show people exactly what they're looking for. This is going to get people excited about going out and getting feet on the ground and looking at property. By doing that, your job is to be on the MLS every single day, and when something pops up that's hot and you have a hot buyer that's buying in the next 30 days, you are picking up the phone and calling them because you've done your work with the person and you've narrowed down the search. So we got 7 properties. Here you go. Update. So now here's the properties that go out. It's going to go out daily. And now I can close this. I can go back to my dashboard and refresh, and it instantly shows that there is one search that has been created for my client. Now, I've created the search for the client. Your job's not done yet. They received a welcome email, but without you following up, you don't know if that welcome email ever made it to them. You don't know if that welcome email ever showed up in spam. You don't know if they basically didn't know that they were going to get a welcome email, so they deleted it. Now that you've done a portion of your job, it's your job to follow up with them, and this gives you a reason to call them again. So you don't want to call them within, like, I just met this person an hour ago, and now I'm going to call them because I told them I'd get it done. You want to call them, the next day. Hey, I don't know if you were able to see, but I sent you a welcome email. When's a good time to meet or talk so I can show you how to use my system? And this is where you're selling your system. You're going, dude, my system is awesome. It is instant access to all of California. Anywhere on the matrix, you have access. You can create your own searches. You can look at properties anywhere in these states or anywhere in the cities. I just want to make sure you know how to do it. And ultimately, you're going to show them how to click, like, I like this property. So if they see a property, I'll just pull a property up real quick. Let's say Adina. They're in here. The big thing is you want to show them, hey, if you like this property or something about this property jumped out at you, click the heart. Let me know that you like it. Or down here, let me know this property is awesome. I can't even say it. Let's go see it. So if the client is in their portal and they're looking at the property and they're like, oh, I want to save this property. I want to keep an eye on this property. I want to save it. And then let them know to start putting notes in the system. Save note. That way you get notified that your client likes a property. So if I hit refresh, now you as the agent are in here. Save search. So it hasn't pulled over yet. Close. Refresh. So ultimately, I'm wondering because I'm logged in as the agent, but ultimately it's going to show up here that your client likes the property. And then under notes, it's going to show that they put a note in the system. So then you can read the note of what they said. Every time, I also want to point out, every time you add a label, the default, every time you add a label, default in the system may add a drip campaign email system. So the way you can tell is my client getting emails. So right here, this little blue drip means that the campaign is active. That means that the system is sending emails on your behalf. If you want to know what those emails are, you're going to click on no name, go to subscription, and right here are the campaigns. So you can see there's a buyer long drip campaign and there's a buyer monthly campaign. If you don't like it, you can turn it off. Off. Now, if you really want to know what it is, you have to remember, all right, this is buyer long drip campaign. So I'm going to come over here to communication, and I'm going to go to campaigns, and I'm going to find that campaign in here, and I'm going to know, so buyer long drip campaign, I'm going to click on it, and I can read every single email that is in here. Now, if I want to create my own campaign and I want to edit some of these, I need to make a copy of it. And once I made a copy of it, so here it is, boom, and it comes over here. Once I make a copy, I now have an edit button. So I can edit. And I could say every time I add this label, every time I add, I don't know, 1 to 3 month label. This is where you're customizing your own campaigns. Every time I add a 1 to 3 label, I want these emails to go out. But you know what? I don't like that email. I want to change this email to say something else. Have a good day. Okay. Hit save. I want this email to only go out any day. You know, so you can really get, and I want it to wait only 6 days. So waiting means when they registered, how long before this email goes out. So you can see they've created a whole campaign. And this campaign can actually have, see, add a touch. I can add a touch and I can say I need a reminder for myself on day 15 to follow up at 1 a.m. in the morning, or at 8:30 p.m. I'm going to follow up on how's the property search going. And I'm going to remind myself to look at this person, hit save, and now I've added something in my campaign. And I want to activate my campaign now. Okay, so ultimately you want to start playing around in here. This is, when do you want your campaign to start? When do you want it to stop? And this is where you can come in and say, if I have a sphere of influence source, I want this campaign to come on. Or if I add a label called relocating, I want this campaign to come on. And the moment I move them in the pipeline as contacted to showing property, I want the campaign to stop. So it's important you have probably a buyer campaign, a seller campaign, and a future client campaign. So a buyer and seller, someone that's going to buy and sell in the first 90 days, you know, someone that's going to buy in the first 90 days, someone that's going to sell in the first 90 days, someone that's going to relocate, and someone that's thinking of buying or selling 90 days or out. Those are your 4 campaigns, and ultimately you can just copy and paste some of the emails, and you want to set yourself up with probably a 90-day campaign and then a long-term 12-month campaign. That way you're always sending some sort of piece of information like, hey, the market's heating up, or have you looked at properties lately? Have you gotten pre-qualified? Let's talk about real estate. Something that just gets you an email in front of them as a touch to make them call you or respond back to you via email and say, hey, thanks for thinking of me. Not in the market just yet, but definitely next summer I'm going to be in the market. And then you can notate that in your CRM. So once, and I get this a lot, emails are going out on my behalf and I don't know what they're saying. You're going to go to campaigns, you're going to find the campaign that you assigned to them, and you can read the emails and then edit them at that point. So there's about 12 default campaigns that are already in here from CINC. Now again, if they're default, I can't come in and edit. I have to make a copy first. And once I make a copy, then I can edit it. And it's important that if you do make a copy, change the title of it so you know which one you're looking at. So ultimately you're assigning the right campaign. So anyway, I hope that helps. So today we learned about how to manually add a lead, how to change it in your pipeline. So again, every time you make contact, if you show, so let me really quick, new lead means that the lead just got put into the system. Attempted calls means that you are trying to get a hold of this person, but you still have not got a hold of them. So there really should never be a new lead category, because the goal is to try to get in touch or make that phone call within your first 5 minutes. So if I'm in here and it says new lead after 3 days, it means that you haven't called this person ever. Now you might have, but you've never actually updated your system. Attempted is very common, which means I'm still trying to get in touch with this person. If you're manually entering leads, then you've already made contact. Appointment set means that you have set an appointment to come talk to you about either buying or listing. Showing means this person is in the process, you are showing them property at this time. Of course, under contract is a happy day, you've put them under contract. Sold, and HRE and HRE agent is for recruiting, so you can disregard that. It's important that you move the lead along the pipeline, because once they're in sold, they're going to get a campaign about asking for business. Hey, I did a good job for you. Do you have any referrals? And ultimately, you're going to want to edit that campaign to make sure you're happy with the type of requests that you're asking from your clients. But you should always be asking for the business from past clients. This is going to show you when they were registered, if they did do a search, and then when was the last time I talked to this person. And there you go. So I hope that helps. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, reach out. But work your pipeline. The more you work your pipeline, the more you can start structuring your business to find out where your business is going to come from. So you're not always chasing the transaction. You're building an organization. You're building a network. So anyway, hope that helps. Go get an escrow and talk to you soon.